Okay, as of right now, there are no suspects in custody. Emergency personnel on the scene, including several police and ambulances. Officials in Louisiana say 2 people have died and 3 are missing east of Baton Rouge. Governor John Bel Edwards has declared a state of emergency because of flooding.
As of right now, well over 1,000 people rescued, not just from their homes, but from their vehicles. Some people not even from their vehicles. They've been clinging to trees and other things like this in swift moving floodwaters.
17 inches of rain in just a 24-hour period. More gold for the Americans, this time in the water, but not the pool in Rio.
On a brilliant sunny day in Rio, the women's rowing teams have been shining brightly. The U.S. has taken gold in the Coxed 8 competition, and Jevy Stone has won silver in sculls singles. Stone of Newton, Massachusetts, took gold at the 2012 Games in London.
ABC's Jim Ryan in Rio. The green pool at the Olympics will be drained, officials say, refilled in time for synchronized swimming tomorrow. You're listening to ABC News.
Here's a special message for those of you who owe the IRS at least $10,000 or more in back taxes. The IRS has special programs in place that could eliminate or reduce your tax debt by thousands of dollars. With a call to National Tax Helpline, you can stop the wage garnishments, levies, and tax liens now. Once you've qualified and enrolled, the IRS will stop all the collection activities against you. These unique programs have been allocated to help the economy and significantly reduce or eliminate your tax burden. The IRS is currently accepting reduced settlements and other favorable programs. You may qualify for substantial savings, so get the help you need. If you owe the IRS $10,000 or more, call now for free information and to see if you qualify. Take down the number now for the Tax Helpline, 800-708-4718. That's 800-708-4718 for free information. 800-708-4718. That's 800-708-4718.
More migrant rescues in the sea south of Italy.
Police at Italy's northern borders have been working hard trying to stop migrants from crossing into France, Switzerland, and Austria. At the Austrian border, 4 times as many migrants are being turned away now as were in May. That has Arnold Compastor, the president of the northern Italian region of Bolzano, worried. He's concerned Austria will once again threaten to shut off the famous Brenner Pass that runs between the two countries.
This border was the symbol of the possibility to overcome war and nationalism. To turn back to single states in Europe is the wrong way to solve this problem.
Megan Williams, ABC News, Rome.
The Marine Corps is trying to boost the number of women in its ranks. ABC's Michelle Franzen with more on the efforts.
The U.S. Marine Corps is searching for a few good women. More of them. Marine Commandant General Robert Neller says he wants to boost the number of women in the Corps to 1 in 10. Currently, about 7 to 8% of the Corps are made up of women. It comes as the military branch has opened frontline combat jobs to women. Marine recruiters are stepping up their campaign, even turning to high school sports teams to find candidates who may be able to meet the Corps' rigorous physical standards. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Kenny Baker, the 3'8" actor who played the beloved R2-D2 in Star Wars films beginning in 1977, has died following a lengthy illness. Kenny Baker was 81. This is ABC News.
ABC News Radio.
Bells of St. Patrick's Cathedral herald the arrival of Pope Francis here in New York City.
Honored with the prestigious Edward R. Murrow Award for overall excellence for the 3rd year in a row.
The vast majority of people here were very happy, and you could feel it in a really special way, a very historic moment.
The best team in radio is right here.
ABC News. ABC News.
ABC News.
ABC News Radio.
I'm Sherry Preston, ABC News.
From the KMET Weather Bug Weather Center for Beaumont and the Pass area for this afternoon, it'll be sunny with a high of 99. Overnight skies will be clear, a low 75. We'll have winds to 25 miles an hour. We'll have a sunny, hot Sunday as you wrap up the weekend with a high 101. Monday looks to be sunny, continued hot with a high 102. For the Inland Empire this afternoon, it'll be sunny with a high of 98. For the desert cities, we'll have sunny, hot conditions, our high 109. I'm Rod Tanner for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
Summer in the Inland Empire. You know what that means. Sunny days and hot temperatures that make you want to stay inside. Franklin Mechanical Systems can repair or replace your air conditioning unit to get it working cool before the heat hits. For cleaning, repair, or a new installation, call them for a free estimate. Franklin Mechanical Systems for all your residential and commercial air conditioning needs. Call their Beaumont office at 951-845-1000. That's 951-845-1000 and get cool today. The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Yeah, I don't hear the music. Welcome to Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs here on KMET 1490 AM. Welcome to the program. My name is Douglas V. Gibbs. I am your host. Co-host Alex Ferguson with me as always, conservativecannonade.org. If you missed this program live or you only catch a part of it, you can always catch the podcast later. Go to KMET1490am.com. Check it out, and of course the video of the program will show up on my YouTube channel later on, youtube.com/Douglas V. Gibbs. Today's program, we're talking about the mainstream media, and you know, it's funny because Alex and I were just talking about how the media, the tilted coverage of what's been going on with this presidential race with Hillary Clinton and her Clinton crime family crime spree over the last however many decades is not only incredible, it's in your face. It's so obvious. It's as if they don't even worry that you know that they're full of it.
Well, they're certainly biased to an extent unheard of before. They used to disguise it. Now they're proud of it. The universities they go to where they get their journalism classes are honest to gosh, they're teaching them that it's their job not to report the news, but to make the America a better place, which means make it a more leftist place.
Now, joining us on the program today is journalist Charles Wiley to discuss the ways the mainstream media lies to us. And let's real quick go through a review of who this man is. Charles Wiley is a radio, television personality, commentator, journalist. As a journalist, he has worked in 100 countries, covered 11 wars, specifically reported on the Vietnam conflict in 62, 64, 68, and 72. New York University graduate. His freelance articles and photographs have appeared in numerous major publications. Wiley's in-depth work regarding the facts has led to his arrest 8 times by secret police, including the KGB. Could you imagine, Alex? And imprisonment in a Cuban dungeon while he was a correspondent for the New York City radio station WOR. Mr. Wiley speaks worldwide, including on numerous occasions, like Communist China, Soviet Union during the Cold War. He currently speaks in colleges, high schools, other youth audiences throughout the country. Wiley also frequently addresses military audiences early in the war on terrorism. He was the keynote speaker at a 2-day Washington conference on Homeland Security. He has been to Afghanistan, Kosovo, other locations in the Muslim world. In addition to all that, he had a very successful 13-year show business career, and he is, on top of all that, a World War II veteran serving in the Pacific Theater of War. So welcome to the program, Mr. Wiley. It's a pleasure to have you on the show with us, and excited to talk to you about, well, the media.
Thank you much for having me. I just would start out any discussion about the media by pointing out the power of the media. And I don't think that very many people have given heavy-duty thought to the power they have, because it just doesn't occur to people. This country and the world have endless problems. I mean, we all know that. There are problems at the local level, your local city, your county, the state, the national picture, the international picture. Everywhere you look, there's problems. In fact, there's so many problems that we won't get around, let alone solve them, or we won't even get around to trying to solve most of them because there's just too many. Now, how do you decide which problems you're going to attack? Well, it's not by the politicians. It is rare that a political figure comes up and says, hey, here's a problem, And here's the answer to it. It just doesn't happen that way. What does happen is that if the media, at whatever level, decides that something is a problem, they put a spotlight on it. And the bigger the spotlight, the more frequently the spotlight is turned on, the higher on the priority list the problem goes. And so, in effect, the news media decides what are the problems we're going to try to solve, the priority, the order in which we're going to attempt to do it, and then, having done that, they set the ground rules for the discussion about the problem. And so from the beginning to the end of this process, the news media has incredible influence on everything we do.
Well, it sounds like they're accomplices in the Hegelian principle or the Hegelian dialectic. Hegelian dialectic basically is you create a problem, you create the opposition to the problem, then you come swooping in with the governmental cure for the problem. Sounds like they're accomplices to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, and I don't know that you could say it's bad that the media has that power, because obviously they have it, and it could be used for good or bad. In other words, if the media strictly tries to highlight problems and did so in a neutral way, and then covered in a neutral way, and so on, then they would be doing us all a service. The problem is that they are picking out the problems based not on the importance of the problem. They are picking out the problems. And there's just so many things that they do that have, they make no sense. One that I'm getting a big kick out of is that they are now saying that because Trump said that Obama was the founder of the terrorist bunch, that he really meant that somewhere in the United States there's somebody that actually listened to him say that and said, oh, gee, I didn't know that Obama started that. I mean, everybody in the world that has half a brain knows that this was just a line. It has nothing to do with reality. It wasn't meant to have anything to do with reality. And I thought one of the funny...
hyperbole.
Say that again?
Alex said it was hyperbole that they're offering. And, it almost sounds like, used to hear on Dragnet, the facts, ma'am, only the facts. And what we hear is the political narrative, ma'am, only the political narrative.
Well, basically, just about everything they do. How about they made a big thing recently that he said the Second Amendment people have to take, meaning he meant that they should vote. And certainly, any jokes today about any subject that catches the fancy of the...
Well, Trump baited them. He baited them. He knew. Trump knew they would react the way they did. Trump knew they would react the way they did. He baited them to react the way they did.
The one that never got any real coverage was when Obama was running for office. He said in one speech that if the other guy brings a knife to the fight, you bring a gun.
Yeah.
I know. And you know that he wasn't suggesting that the audience go out and get a gun for the next political battle, but that's what he said, and the media didn't even flinch at that and say, whoa, wait a minute, what has he said here? Oh, my, isn't that... No, because we have this double standard. One of the double standards that is driving me nuts lately is the fact that you can talk about certain people in certain ways, but you can't talk about others. For example, we're talking about those undereducated voters that are supporting Trump. Over and over, they keep pointing out the undereducated white male angry voters. Have you ever heard anybody talk about the educational level of the minorities that are voting for Clinton? Good Lord, the high school rate among them is like many times that of those angry white voters, but we talk constantly about the undereducated white voter. Would never dream of doing something like that when it came to a minority. And their concepts are actually funny sometimes. Susan Rice.
Well, their concepts have been proven wrong. A few years ago, a Yale University professor set out to show that the Tea Party people, for example, were just a bunch of stupid hicks. And after he did a study, what he determined was that of all the different groups, including establishment Republicans and so forth, the Tea Party supporters scored highest on scientific understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that study, but I'm not in the least bit surprised, and I'm also not surprised that I don't know about it. And the reason I say that is because the news media, sure as hell, is not going to play that one up very big. But, you know, if you go down the line, another one that got to me is Susan Rice, right? Now, she's top of the line. She was on a CNN show talking about the importance of diversity. We have to have more and more diversity. And then later in the show, she referred to Florida International University. I forget why she brought them up. But she brought up Florida International University, and then she threw in one of the most diverse universities in the country. It's over 60% Hispanic. So Susan Rice...
So diversity means mostly Hispanic to her.
Whoever they want it to be. So, but I mean, she said it with a straight face, and of course nobody on the panel turned around and said, "Excuse me, lady, what do you mean that is good diversity when it's over 60% of one minority?" And no question. I mean, never given a question. And
Mr. Wiley,
it's pathetic.
I've been doing a series here on the other side of the coin with the media, and that is that the media write the first draft of history. So it doesn't matter anymore what happened. They'll tell you what happened and they'll lie. And it used to be that history was written by the victors. Now it's written by the leftists, and kids coming out of college have no idea what really happened.
Yeah. And by the way, that's going to be more and more true. The only saving grace is that we do have the internet, and things that were done in the past would not possibly be done today. For example, during the war in Vietnam, there were huge demonstrations all over the country supporting the men that were fighting the war. Much bigger demonstrations than the anti-war demonstrations, for example, and almost universally not covered by national media. So unless you happen to be in the city where one of those demonstrations took place, you didn't know about it because the networks and national media just didn't cover them. And it couldn't happen today. In other words, if there was 250,000 people marching for 9 hours, as actually happened during the Vietnam War, in a parade call to support our men in Vietnam. It's worse than anything the anti-war people ever did. And 3 networks in those days, we only had the 3, no cable. Not one of them gave 1 second of coverage. Now, if that happened today, my computer would be shaking with messages coming in from all kinds of places saying, "Hey, did you know this just happened?" And the media didn't tell you about it. And so that's the only saving grace. We can reach people without the media, and we're still at a huge disadvantage. But it puts a little bit of a break on how far they can go in just ignoring anything that that shows disagreement with their position.
As a Vietnam veteran, I can tell you that when they went over to Vietnam, well, I was just reporting last week about a guy named An, who was their most respected Time magazine analyst. He turned out to be a colonel in the North Vietnamese Army. Yeah. But when there was an atrocity that the Americans did, and there's always atrocities by some wacko, like My Lai, they played it up and played it up and played it up. But the Viet Cong were committing atrocities every day. And I have yet to see an American news account of a communist atrocity.
Yeah, and absolutely true. As you said in the introduction, I spent 4 tours over there. I was there when we first sort of showed up with some advisors, and then I was there when they started to land bigger numbers. I was there for the Tet Offensive, and I was there for the Easter Offensive. So I saw that picture, and I watched as the media just simply turned against first of all, the Vietnamese on our side. They were given the most terrible coverage imaginable. When they were mentioned at all, those that were on our side were mentioned in a negative way. And there was never any coverage, for example, of how well they did in many, many instances. And everybody forgets that we took our ground troops out of there, and that the Easter Offensive was the biggest tank invasion since World War II at that time, and it came from the north. The North Vietnamese Army invaded the South, and the South Vietnamese military, without any American ground troops, they had advisors and they had some American air support, but they did not have any ground troops at all, and the South Vietnamese Army beat them cold. They came in, they made gains for the first couple of days when they first hit, and then slowly but surely the Vietnamese in the South took back every inch of territory that the North had been able to take in those opening days of their attack, called the Easter Offensive, and completely turned it around. Look, very few Americans have any concept that ever happened.
Well, what happened was in 1975, after the Watergate situation, the Democrats took over Congress and cut off, in violation of the Paris Peace Accords. I'd like people to understand that. They always talk about violating treaties. Ted Kennedy wouldn't even send medical supplies. They were cut off completely, and of course they lost. But the newspaper accounts always say that the only war that America ever lost. We didn't lose that war. The Democrats surrendered.
Yeah. Absolutely, and you have it correct, and unfortunately, very, very few people know. In fact, I'm working on a project now that is going to make it absolutely crystal clear that the news media coverage of the home front during the Vietnam was absolutely atrocious. It is shameful, and as a journalist, it just drives me up the wall to think that my journalism that I worked in for so many years could do such a terrible, terrible job. And actually ended up making the American people, they cheated the veterans by not letting them know how much support they had, and making them think that everybody was against it, which was nonsense. And secondly, they slandered the American people because they said, in effect, that we turn our backs on our own kids when they come home from a war. And we change history. The history books are simply wrong about what happened on the home front. Incidentally, we're going to have that thing ready to go fairly soon. If you want, I will get in touch, and maybe I can come on the show and talk about it.
Oh, yeah. We'll definitely have you back for that. And I wanted, before I let you go, wanted to tell the audience how it continues. There's a recent House of Representatives probe into Central Command, and of course the media is tied into this and how they report all this too, because you're not going to hear about this, that the Central Command intelligence the language is being manipulated to make ISIS look more favorable. ISIS!
I have a report that is very well documented and valid, that J. William Fulbright went to Robert McNamara and he said, "You've got all these anti-communist films that you're showing to our troops." And McNamara says, "Yeah." He says, "You're turning them into fanatics. You're turning them into fascists. Stop it." He ordered him to. So what you get is like the kid that was interviewed in Vietnam, and he says, "I guess we're fighting for something, but I don't know what it is." He didn't know what it was because the left had cut off our side of the story.
By the way, if anybody wants to get a hold of the Accuracy in Media website, where you can get a lot of information. Now, I'm on the Speakers Bureau of AIM and have been for many years. I don't always agree with everything the Home Office says because, we try to be objective, and when you're objective, you're going to have differences from time to time. But it is a totally different way of looking at the media, and it has actually, it was the organization that made the breakthrough when the media was looked at by the public in the same way they looked at the Pope and Billy Graham and people like that. The news media was given that kind of consideration by the public. That's what our public thought of the media. They thought that they were the most trustworthy, et cetera, et cetera. And this was long after they started slanting stories. And it was the founder of AIM, Reed Irvine, who went on show after show and just bullied his way in somehow, and he was the one that got the turnaround. And now, of course, the news media ranks in the public's mind below used car salesmen and lawyers.
Reed Irvine and I used to be very close friends. When he came out to California, we'd always get together. My problem is that ever since he passed away, I haven't been able to get through to anybody. He's got a son that works there, but I don't get any returns on my calls.
Well, by the way, if anybody wants to find out, just www.aim.org, O-R-G for organization. And
also, because we're running up against a break here, and for your website, how do they find you?
Well, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, they can send an email to me directly, and that would be my last name first, and then my first name. So it's Wiley, W-I-L-E-Y, Charles, at ATT.NET. AlphaTangoTango.net.
AT&T.net. Okay. Mr. Wiley, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. We got to go to break. Thank you for the time, and thank you for all the hard work you do, sir.
Okay. Thank you for having me as a guest.
All right. Thank you, sir. Folks, as you go into this break, remember, these are the people that bring this program to you. These are the sponsors who allow us to be on your airwaves. So please hang around for the ads and pay them a visit. We'll be right back.
You got a dent in your door, a scratch in your fender, or a scratch in your door and a dent in your fender. If you need auto detailing, if you need fire shooting decals on the side of your car, if you need a rally stripe right down the middle of your hardtop, I don't care what it is. The Patriots at All-Star Collision are the place you want to go. They're the only place to go. 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Web address allstarci.com to see all that they do and what they're all about. Phone number 951-279-9161. All-Star Collision, the kings of wreck and roll.
Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the businesses advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
What's your constitutional IQ? Your quest to learn the Constitution can be fun for the whole family. Learn about the Constitution as you play the Constitution Quest board game. Learn more at constitutionquest.com.
And now, back to our program.
Welcome back to Constitutional Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. Before we hand it over to Alex here, I wanted to talk about a couple of Constitution Corner items. The first one being that a Second Amendment conversation on board a flight en route to from a location in Ohio to location in Pennsylvania was forced to land because the pilot feared some of the rhetoric being said. Conversation between an Ohio conservative and Canadian liberal got heated. Discussion about guns reached a point that the pilot decided it would be wise to divert the flight to Harrisburg International Airport. The conversation was about poverty and the Second Amendment rights, and at one point the Ohio conservative said that he always carries a gun. This led everybody on the plane to believe that that must mean he's carrying at that moment, and the fears got them to land the plane. The police got involved, pulled the man off the plane, searched all of his belongings, searched the man, no gun. Pilot refused to allow him back on the plane. The man wound up having to rent a car to finish his trip. Now, that said, first of all, when it comes to freedom of speech here, privately owned business, like it or not, stupid or not, they have a right to refuse business to anybody based, on what they say or do or whatever. I mean, if I owned a Christian bookstore and a bunch of guys started coming in saying Allahu Akbar, I'd be throwing them out pretty quick.
We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. As for the Second Amendment part of the discussion, I believe this is less of a conversation about the Constitution, more about common sense. You don't fire in a theater, you don't say bomb an airport, and you don't say anything that may insinuate you're armed while aboard an aircraft. Granted, we are in a ridiculously oversensitive society full of dainty snowflakes who are offended by everything. That said, why get that kind of conversation with someone who is obviously so far out to lunch that nothing said would ever convince them they need to reevaluate what they believe? All right. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about real quick, I don't know if you heard about this. There's been a lot of talk about the what if Hillary Clinton was too ill, or she wound up getting indicted and arrested or something after she was elected but before she was inaugurated. Someone actually suggested that would mean then that Obama could retain his office. And to clear everybody's minds, that's not true. If you go to the 20th and 25th Amendment, it's covered. 20th Amendment, Section 3. If at time fixed from the beginning of the term of the president-elect shall have died, the vice president-elect shall become president. If a president shall not have been chosen before the time fixed for the beginning of the election, or if the president-elect shall have failed to qualify, being arrested would make her fail to qualify, then the vice president-elect shall act as president until the president shall have qualified. Then you go to the 25th Amendment. So you got the vice president now is president. What happens? He's got no vice president. Well, 25th Amendment allows then the new president to nominate a person to fill the vacancy, and the Congress has to approve it. That's what happened when Spiro Agnew resigned. Nixon appointed Ford, or actually nominated Ford, and then Congress approved Ford, and so Ford became vice president. Then when Nixon resigned, Ford then became president, and then Ford had to nominate his own vice president. By the way, Gerald Ford is the only president never elected. But so that answers that. Now we got Constitution Corner out of the way. What do you got for us? You got a new poem you want to?
Well, it's not new, but it is apropos in that Mr. Wiley and I were discussing the propensity of the liberals to cut off supplies and ammunition to our allies when they're fighting for their lives. as they did in Vietnam, for instance, as they did in the Near East recently. But this is an especially egregious example. During the Contra Wars, which was an attempt by Castro or the Soviet Empire through Castro to take over Central America and the Panama Canal, the Democrats set up the Boland Amendment and various and sundry laws to keep them from being the Contras from being supplied. And I worked with those people. They were a legitimate revolutionary group.
Okay.
The guy that managed all that was the CIA director William J. Casey, in collaboration with Ollie North. And for his memorial service, when he got brain cancer, I presented his wife a memorial poem, which I will read to you now. It's called Liberty's Light. Big Bill Casey was a crafty old spy in a rumpled suit of clothes, and he was quite content to die, still knowing what nobody knows. For secrets were his stock and trade, he could build them or tear them apart. Yet every secret that he ever made was forged in a patriot's heart. He fought the Nazi deep in his lair, black parachute silent as night, phantom soldiers out of thin air, safekeepers of liberty's light. The Nazi fell, the Marxist rose, Bill Casey fought on with a will. They said he stepped on too many toes. You betcha, that was Bill. If liberty's light shines brighter now, if working men are free, God bless that spy who would not bow to age or tyranny. Now, I've been doing, as I told Mr. Wiley, I've been doing this series on journalists and how they have betrayed America, which sounds like hyperbole in itself, but actually it's an understatement. And I have this long list that I've been going through. Lately it was Walter Duranty and Michael Straight. I've got one that came up recently because I was rewatching Trumbo, the movie Trumbo, and it included a thing about Edward R. Murrow. Now, Edward R. Murrow is probably America's, outside of Walter Cronkite, who certainly doesn't deserve any kind of accolade. Mm-hmm. Edward R. Murrow is our most respected journalist. He went after Joe McCarthy big time and just destroyed him. As it happens, the reason he was so angry at Joe McCarthy was McCarthy had named a guy named Duggan. And Duggan, what the heck is his first name? Anyway, he was best friends with this guy, and it turns out that in all of his defense, he ignored one factor, and that was that Duggan, in fact, was a communist spy. He worked in the State Department at a high level, and he was named in Venona. We have the secret codes for the Soviet Empire's spies. Lawrence Duggan. He was exposed as a spy. So all of these movies they make, like George Clooney, who's a leftist lying pig. George Clooney made a movie called Good Night and Good Luck, in which he defamed McCarthy using the Edward R. Murrow information. And everything that he said about McCarthy, every charge he made about him in that movie, which he co-wrote, turns out to be false.
Well, McCarthy, matter of fact, you and I discussed this earlier. He wasn't even one that started this. He was just a small part of the communist hunt, so to speak.
Absolutely correct. So we get to a situation. See, it used to be that there would be two newspapers in a town, at least two. One of them conservative, one of them liberal. And they would both tell their own side of the story.
And there was none that was objective, huh?
Well, objectivity is hard to produce, even in rare cases where people are trying.
Right.
But in this situation, it was a battle between the two ideologies.
Mm-hmm.
And then the left decided, a la Obama, his technique, they decided that the thing to do is to stop arguing with the enemy and just destroy them. And that happened in Los Angeles, California, 1967, 1977. There was a newspaper called the Herald Examiner. William Randolph Hearst Jr. was the publisher. They'd been at it since 1937. And I've got a buddy who was a member of the Printers Union at the time the strike went on. They struck that newspaper for 10 years, from 1967 to 1977. And this friend of mine told the head of the union, he says, you know, if you keep it up, you're just going to drive that newspaper out of business. They've been telling you that for years. Aren't you worried about losing jobs? And the guy says, no, we want these people out of here. Our workers will get jobs at other newspapers, at liberal newspapers, and that'll be just fine. So what we have, like for instance, when I was teaching, I used to grab a copy of Noticias del Mundo every day, which was a Spanish language newspaper, and suddenly it wasn't there anymore. The LA Times had created a en Español edition, undercut Noticias del Mundo, and in various nefarious ways drove them out of business. So the fact that all the media is now, virtually all the media is, except talk radio and maybe Fox Network, the fact that they are all leftist sycophants is not an accident.
Well, with Roger Ailes gone and now Murdoch's son's taking over Fox News, it's on its way to being a moderate left-wing whatever. We're out of time on your part of this, buddy, but I did want to bring this up. We had Charles Wiley on earlier. For those of you who want to visit his website, it's ncrp.us, ncrp.us. And right here on Constitution Radio, when we return, we're going to start tackling the big stories of the week. And if you want to call in, if you want to participate, I want to hear from you. 951-922-3532. That's 951-922-3532. We'll be right back.
The spirit of Paul Revere is alive and well and broadcasting on KMET AM 1490. Constitutionalist Douglas V. Gibbs hosts a roundtable of local citizens through local, state, and national issues every Saturday at 8 a.m. Thomas Jefferson said, "We in America do not have government by the majority. We have government by the majority who participate." So, participate. Listen to Conservative Voice Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. and join Paul Revere's modern ride for liberty.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
The true patriots of All-Star Collision have been proudly serving the Inland Empire for over 20 years. Built on honesty, integrity, quality, and old-fashioned customer service, we offer lifetime warranties for our work, and every vehicle serviced by All-Star Collision is washed, detailed, The headlights polished, fluids are checked and topped off, safety checked, and returned in showroom condition. We offer free estimates, are approved by major insurance companies, and accept all claims for all cars and trucks. We use computerized frame straightening to factory specifications, offer fiberglass body repair and paint, free local pickup and delivery, and after-hours towing. Mention this radio program at drop-off and receive $100 off or a free rental car for up to 5 days during your repair. Visit us at allstarci.com or at 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Call us at 951-279-9161. We are the kings of wreck and roll.
And now, back to our program.
Welcome back to Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. I am your host, Douglas V. Gibbs. DouglasVGibbs.com. I got my co-host here with me, Alex Ferguson, conservativecannonade.org. Mr. Ferguson, check this out. Story number 4. In Utah, there is a battle over land that makes the confrontations at Bundy Ranch in Nevada and the mines in Oregon look like child's play. We're talking about a 2 million acre region known as Bears Ears. It's a region that's sacred to many Native American tribes in the Southwest. And so the tribes, along with some conservationists, want President Obama to designate the land as a national monument. As a monument, it's a little different than a national park. It has even stricter guidelines, like, people not allowed to be on the property. The federal grip on the land will get even tighter, kill much of the local economy, and, oh, by the way, it's unconstitutional. According to the U.S. Constitution, in order to take over land or to have control of land in a state, Article 1, Section 8 says that the federal government has to pay for it, do so with the approval of the state legislation. These states have been trying to fight to get their land back, and it's for the purpose of needful buildings. The last time I checked, those two Bears Ears rock croppings are not needful buildings. Now, what the federal government is using is the Antiquities Act of 1906, which allows the federal government to do this from their point of view. So what is happening?
It's not an antiquity either.
Utah Representative Chris Stewart, Republican, he is backing the funding of a prohibition to actually target the Antiquities Act and get it repealed. They're committed to continuing to use the power of the purse, stop funding even going into that program to keep the federal government from doing what they're doing. So fascinating stuff. Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that it's an odd use of a statute called antiquities when every rock on the planet is an antiquity. If you look at it that way, it doesn't make sense. If you want to go at it from a conservation point of view, or like Teddy Roosevelt did with parks and stuff like that, there's an argument to be made. But the problem is that this administration has been making that argument willy-nilly in every direction to the point where we're tying up all our vacant land, making it useless, which is exactly what he wants.
Well, how about the states just nullify the unconstitutional action? How about the Western states get together and say, hey, you're acting unconstitutionally. We refuse to accept your unconstitutional activities. Get off our land.
If they had the nerve to do that, it would be one thing. But we don't see that kind of courage.
Well, so you're saying they're fearful. So either they're ignorant, they don't know they have that power.
That's right.
They're fearful.
That's right.
Or they're complicit.
Many,
some. All right, story number 3. Trump, Second Amendment statement. Had you nervous there, didn't it?
Yeah. I wish he'd quit screwing around like that and get on the main issues that matter to the voters.
I think he was playing the media.
I know you do, but I'm saying he should be attacking Hillary.
Well, he should be, but he knew that they were going to react the way they did. He didn't technically say he wanted Second Amendment people to run out there and start shooting the place up. Here's what he said, folks. Hillary wants to essentially abolish the Second Amendment. By the way, if she gets to pick her judges, nothing you can do, folks. Though the Second Amendment people, well, maybe there is. I don't know. So that was taken as, okay, so Second Amendment's going to, maybe assassinate her, shoot her up, whatever. And he said later, no, I'm saying that, the gun lobby is a large one. Get them to work together. That's a very big voting bloc.
Well, this is an example of Ann Coulter's definition of hallucinatory politics. The left sees things that aren't there,
right,
and hear things that aren't there.
But he knew they would. He knew they would do that. So what did he get out of it? All kinds of free publicity. The same thing he did during the primary. He didn't have to put out any money. They're willing to talk about what he says because the conservatives are not stupid.
But it's
conservatives that he's trying to get to vote for him are going to go, yeah, I get what he meant, and I'm a Second Amendment guy. And then the left's going to run around in circles, and they're already idiots anyway, and we know that. But all it does is, I think, firm and coalesce the right of center voters even more so behind him, and it's given him that publicity he needs to do that, don't you think?
But no, even Charles Krauthammer, who's a man for whom I have enormous respect, he says he's off subject again. The guy should be concentrating on Hillary's selling of influence, on her violation of federal law, all the horrible things that she's responsible for. He never mentions them. He's always yelling about this Gold Star family or that conservative lady. He doesn't pick his fights. He doesn't go for the. There should be some triage. He should choose his issues, and get the ones that are going to win for him. This one I don't think is going to win for him. To start with, it's too vague.
Well, everybody was saying that about him when he was in the primary too, and look what happened.
Yeah, but the primary is a totally different audience. This is the entire panoply of American opinion, and it's confusing. Nailing Hillary for her sins is a much wiser, and everybody's telling them this.
Right. Well, we'll see. Okay, story number 2. This kind of goes into Hillary's sins. Now, WikiLeaks might be exposing it. They're really nervous on the left right now, and Seth Rich, who was the kid that was murdered a few weeks ago, the DNC staffer, according to Julian Assange from WikiLeaks, that was their source. That was the guy that was feeding them this information. So it wasn't a hacking. It was a mole basically within the DNC that was feeding them information.
2 bullets in the back. It's an obvious suicide.
Yeah. Now, since then, there's also been an explosion at an apartment complex in Silver Spring, Maryland, which has spawned a number of theories. One theory suggesting that DNC staffer was the target. Here's the paragraph from one of the news sources. One source CTN spoke with said that 5 to 7 people are still considered to be missing, and it is believed that a longtime DNC staffer may be among the group. The internet immediately lit up with the reports. No bodies have been identified at this time, the police chief told surrounding media. It is very likely that DC staffers, including political types, live in this building. This is another DNC staffer being targeted because he might say something or has said something. Is the Democrat Party that mafia-like?
I think that we should put a program together to send Depends adult diapers to the DNC staff members who are peeing their pants right now, wondering who's next.
Well, I was thinking maybe we should do an episode where we start naming all of the people that were lost, based on the Clinton attacks and connections and all that, but we only do an hour program, so it wouldn't be time. All right, story number 1. Obama to the states. Are you ready for this? Accept the refugees or else. Now, let's go back to Mr. Khan for a moment at the DNC. Holding his, by the way, unused, you could tell because it looked nice. Most of my constitutions are, fading, and some of them are bent, and because I use them. So he has the Democrat blue Constitution that he's waving, saying Mr. Trump needs to read the Constitution. He can't stop people from coming to the United States based on religious tests, which is not true. Now, the president's saying, hey.
Of course, the media sent all kinds of fact checkers out to determine if that was true or not.
Well, of course, yeah, because the media is such a wonderful. Here's the thing. Now, Obama's basically saying, you know what? You start accepting these refugees, or else we're going to, block your money. And that was the main threat. And there was a few others. You're not going to get any money. You do it or else. All right. Article 1, Section 8 gives the authority to naturalization to the federal government, but not this. Article 1, Section 8 also authorizes the federal government to call forth the militia if in case of to repel invasions. Is this not an invasion? Shouldn't they be defending us against this? Article 1, Section 9 says that Congress, as of 1808, may write legislation prohibiting certain persons from coming to the United States. There's no limitations on who these people could be based on any criteria, as some of the Democrats may claim. So if Trump wants to go through Congress, have them ban Muslim immigration for now, they can do that. States are not required anywhere in the Constitution to accept anybody the federal government wants to force them to take. And in fact, once someone's inside the state, it's a state issue. That's up to the state what they do with that person.
This is more democratic hallucinatory politics. They believe that these people have a right to come here. And the fact of the matter is nobody has a right to come here. People who are not citizens of the United States, if they're not on our soil, they have no rights at all.
Obama's Office of Refugee Resettlement, the ORR, told state resettlement officials they may not deny benefits and services to refugees based on their country of origin or religion. The letter also indicated that the heavy federal boot of compassion will come down hard on the necks of those who do not comply and bend to the will of Obama. The office then referred to the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which disallows racial discrimination. Once again, that does not apply to non-citizens, but they've kind of overlooked that.
There's a news out of, I think it's Sweden. See, I always get Sweden and Switzerland confused, but I think it's Sweden, that homeowners who have a summer home are being notified that they no longer have a summer home. Their summer home is going to be taken over by the refugees, and if they don't like it, they can lump it.
As for this racial discrimination thing, when was the last time a religion was a race? It isn't.
I think when you say that the Mexican is a member of a race, you've already stepped part.
Well, Muslim, Mexican, yeah. Well, they're all races. I thought that was only the human race. And actually, the race is what? Caucasian, Black, and Asian.
And I think the Pygmies and Australian Aborigines have their own.
Okay, real quick, because we're running out of time. 24 Republican governors have indicated they will not invite ISIS militants into their states. They will resist refugee placement. This is going to get interesting. We're out of time. Plug yourself.
If you haven't looked up conservativecannonade.org, you're making a mistake. You need to get in there and get some real wisdom.
I am Douglas V. Gibbs. Thank you for listening to the program. DouglasVGibbs.com, politicalpistachio.com. God bless America. God bless you. And never forget, united we stand, combined we kick butt. This nation needs you to fight the good fight. Join us. We'll see you next Saturday.